well then, good morning. Today is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, and we'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. You can join today's board meeting via phone. Dial 971-254-3149, conference ID 736-023-979#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us by going online to tctvonline.com and click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute their phone. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining us via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn on your camera when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become a part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email publiccomments@co.tillamook.or.us by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners Office, 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Okay, we have already called this meeting to order, so I would like to welcome everyone, request anyone in the room to sign the guest list, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Bell, would you lead us, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start with public comment, as we typically do, and I do understand that I have 3 people signed up for public comment. Is there anyone in the room who has since signed up for public comment?
I didn't know we could.
The sign up is back on the shelf there if you would like to sign up for public comment.
Be the long one.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so that would give us 4 folks for public comment, and I believe 3 of those are online, and they're the folks who had already signed up. So just to remind everyone, public comments are I believe are 2 minutes. And Rachel, are you the timer for that one? Okay, and Rachel will be giving us a time on that. And that's just to keep us rolling forward. I also will say quickly, we have a very long agenda today because we are not having a meeting next week. So we just have a long agenda today, lots to get through. So we will definitely hold to those 2 minutes of public comment, again, just so we can keep things rolling forward.
And Commissioner Scar, I
Yes.
think that some of that public comment has to do with your agenda item number 15. So I think that's Mr. DeBrey who's here. So that would be the time, I think, when we go open hearing for him and possibly those who also have public comments too.
Okay, so let's take a moment if we may, because I was understood that this was not a public hearing, that this was a hearing which is simply a space where the Board of Commissioners hears from our staff, reviews the information, and makes a decision. Is there a public hearing that I will be opening?
No, there's not a public hearing, but I think that due process would give at least the person who is allegedly the violator the opportunity to explain to the board, why he thinks the violation or she thinks the violation shouldn't qualify or doesn't.
Okay, so I think what I will do is go ahead and take public comment from those who are here to comment on that agenda item at the beginning of our meeting, as we typically do. We will provide an opportunity for information at the time of the agenda item from Mr. Hunter, is that correct?
Yes.
From Mr. Hunter at that time, but for the public comments relating to this, for those who have signed up for public comment, we'll go ahead and take those at the beginning. Is that, since it is not a public hearing, and I don't want to confuse our process to thinking that this is a public hearing, because it's a different animal, if I understand correctly.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect. With that, thank you, I appreciate that, council, so that we're making sure we're moving on the right direction. I am gonna go ahead, and James Mahana is our first person for public comment. James, if you are there and you wish to unmute yourself, and if you are on camera, turn on your camera. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So you may begin, we have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought my agenda at work was overwhelming. I saw your guys' today and I just went, holy cow. My name's Jim Mahana. I lived here in Tillamook for 35 years. I bordered the property that's on item number 15 at 22250 East Beaver Creek. I bordered his property on both sides of the creek. My history with my neighbor has been when I moved onto the property, they were dumping their waste from their home on the place. We've had all kinds of issues, many law enforcement agents and all that. My concern with the item today is there's a road approach that was built with a lot of tires and debris, allowing access to a piece of property that's on the same side as my house. The community that was disbanded from Sand Lake Road when they left Sand Lake Road, they moved here thinking they could get on that property, and they didn't have any access. Took a couple weeks for that community to be moved out of off East Beaver Creek. I guess my concerns are the road approach itself. It's not legal, and I was wondering if I'm kind of rambling here. The road approach is a concern of mine to provide access to the side of the property where I'm at. There's hundreds and hundreds of tires that are on the place, and they're also in the material used to build the road approach. Waterways that run through that property run onto my property also, and I'm concerned about that. And I have a lot that abuts that property that I've tried to sell, and once everybody sees the tire and the debris on that other side of the property, they lose interest in purchasing that.
So Jim, thank you. Thank you for your comments. We're at your 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Mark Torrance is next. Mark, are you online with us?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. My phone was telling me I was no longer muted. I didn't hear what you said.
That's all right, but please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
What Jim was just saying about this property, I have to agree. The road approach that they put in is in no way to code. If I had done something like that, I would probably be fined and be forced to take it out. And frankly, I think that road approach should be taken out. It's full of all sorts of debris. There's nothing legal about it. As far as the tires that are on the property, there are somewhere between 200 and 300 truck tires stacked up into what appears to be a wall on this property. And this property, these tires are, while not actually in East Beaver Creek, they are very close. Again, if I had done something like that, I would probably be fined big time. And I think whoever did that should be made to take all that stuff out of there and clean up the mess. There's all sorts of garbage and stuff along the creek, and that needs to be fixed. Like Jim was saying, the event that we had where the guy moved all his stuff from Sand Lake Road out here, all sorts of garbage. Parked a trailer in my front yard, basically in my front yard. I live at 21080 East Beaver Creek, which is just about half a mile from Jim's house. And he parked all sorts of garbage in my front yard. That's since been taken care of, but it's become a real problem, and I would appreciate it if you guys could do something about it. That's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your comments. Our third Speaker is Robert Bradley. Robert, are you with us this morning? One more call for Robert. Robert, if you are muted, it's *6 to unmute on our system. Okay, I'm going to assume that something else must have come up for Robert. I'm not hearing him this morning. So I believe that ends our public comment section. We will hear from Mr. Hunter during the agenda item. Okay, perfect. Well, we will jump right in then to the rest of our meeting. I will let everyone know we have one unscheduled item, which we will be taking at the end of the meeting after item number 24. So jumping into our legislative and administrative, we have discussion and consideration of an out-of-state travel request for Josh Brown to attend the Western States Sheriff's Association Annual Conference and Training in Reno, Nevada, March 5th of 23 through March 10th. And we have Josh Brown, our sheriff, here to talk with us. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
We certainly can.
So this is, I'll be traveling to the Western States Sheriff's Association Annual Conference in Reno. It happens in March. I attended it in 2021. I did not attend it in 2022 and be going back obviously in 2023. Great conference, sheriffs from pretty much every state west of the Mississippi is represented here. And it's obviously a good thing that needs to be done. So that's what I'm here for.
Wonderful, thank you. Comments, Commissioner Bell?
Oh, I fully support this.
Perfect. Commissioner Yamamoto?
As am I. I'm sure it's a great conference, and I'm sure Sheriff learns a lot, and it's always good to rub elbows with your fellow sheriffs from across the country. So I think it's great.
Perfect. I'm in support as well. I think we learn a lot from our peers, and best practices are something that we want to make sure we have. I know the sheriff works hard at that, so I'm in agreement. Make a motion.
Here, I move approval of an out-of-state travel request for Josh Brown to attend the Western States Sheriff's Association Annual Conference and Training in Reno, Nevada, March 5th through 10th, 2023.
And I would second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, moving on to item number 6, discussion and consideration of a memorandum of agreement with Teamsters Local Union number 223, International Brotherhood of Teamsters of Portland, Oregon, regarding hours of work and 12-hour shift schedule for the Sheriff's Office. We have Jody Wilson, our Director of Human Resources, with us today for this item. Good morning, Jody.
I think the sheriff was also going to carry part of this item.
Okay, Sheriff, are you still with us? Would you like to join us on camera, and you and Jody can tag team?
Yeah, I can give the basic rundown of it. It actually, my version or rundown of it will actually fit both items 6 and 7. What this amounts to is, well, it's an ongoing theme, struggling with gaining employees and struggling with retaining employees. And then when you're this low on employees, it creates numerous overtime shifts, and then people end up getting burnout and not getting much time off. So what it started out with is the jail being switched to 412s, so that's scheduled, well, it'll switch from 5/8. 2 days a week outside of the jail, especially if you're working like a night shift or a graveyard shift, is just not enough time for our staff to spend time with their family and rest, relax, and just overall health and well-being of them. So the 12-hour shift schedule gives them a tremendous amount more time off. We have enough staff to where we can actually work it. The schedule's already been worked out. We've been working with payroll to make sure that payroll works out. We do have a final meeting coming up next week to go over how the payroll is going to be submitted. But all of the T's have been crossed and I's have been dotted. And we're doing this for a 6-month trial period. This was negotiated in our union negotiations, I believe it was last year. as an option to do, with the understanding that what we're doing right now was going to happen before any kind of shift change or schedule change happened. So this was set forth in the first initial union negotiations. We discussed it, and the union has since approved it, and we have everything worked out. In that same MOU for Teamsters, as well as the MOU for AFSCME, it has to do more with a 410 schedule, and what that is pertaining more to support staff and or the parole and probation division. Parole and probation deputies are Teamsters, but we have a few AFSCME employees. And what we're trying to do basically is get everybody in this facility off of the 5/8 schedule into a 410 or 12-hour shift schedule. What that does is give them more time off, because this job is extremely stressful, the things that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and I'm trying to get our staff more time off on a regular basis, which overall creates a healthier environment. It also helps with retention, and it may help with recruitment as well. If a potential person knows that they're going to get half of the time off if they come work in the jail, we may be able to recruit people better. So overall, it's a creative and outside of the box for us. 12-hour shifts and 410s is not abnormal, but switching our whole department to those type of schedules is new, and you know, it's been 5/8 in the jails for as long as I've been here and longer, and so it is new to us to be able to switch to this and a little bit outside the box, but overall it's going to be far healthier for our staff, which, as I said, could lead to healthier employees and happier employees.
Thank you, Sheriff. Jody?
One item that I would like to add to that is the MOUs also include a paid meal break, very unique to the sheriff's office. It's not like you can say, you all get to watch yourself at the moment, we're gonna go take a lunch. So it does include an exemption for the unpaid meal break, and instead it does cover a half-hour meal break that they will respond to whatever they need to during that time. So under both contracts, and why it was specific, we called that out, is that is a Department of Labor exemption that we are applying for.
Perfect, thank you. Sean, I'm going to just use this opportunity to ask if you've looked at financial implications, if you have any concerns or anything that we should be aware of.
I don't. I've spoken with Josh. We're in hopes that this curbs some of the overtime that his department has been incurring with their employees. So.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioners, questions or comments? Commissioner Bell?
I'm fully supportive of this. I think it's well worth trying. I hope that it works. It makes sense to me that, you know, the law enforcement is very stressful. And so I like the idea of our law enforcement officers having 3 days off. I realize that they're covering a lot of empty shifts, and so they may not always get 3 days off, but I like the idea that they might get 3 days off. And certainly I'm supportive of running less overtime. So I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad we're trying it.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Yamamoto?
Yes, I also thank Sheriff for thinking outside the box here and putting together something like this. I just want to make sure that I think there's one item, and I think that's it's agreed to as follows. Item number 1. It's the only place that I see that this is for our deputy correction. So this, I want to make sure this does not apply to patrol. Is that correct?
The patrol is already on 410s. Corrections is on 5/8. What was negotiated in the contract and what is negotiated in this is the 12-hour shift is corrections only. No other divisions, not parole and probation, not patrol. We do not have the staffing or means of being able to switch patrol to 12s. We do have coverage 24 hours a day through an on-call system for patrol. So this is specific and only applicable to corrections.
And so is that the same then, Sheriff, when we next bring up the AFSCME issue?
The AFSCME issue is specific. Basically, we have 2.5 employees out here. that are represented by AFSCME. They are, one is in the parole and probation division and one is in the criminal division. And they are going to the 10-hour shifts, not the 12-hour shifts.
Oh, okay, okay.
And as Jody said, the big issue with the 410s is the paid or unpaid lunch hour. And because of our unique line of work, BOLI is very open to things like this, because law enforcement often has no ability to say you will get this unpaid, lunchtime, uninterrupted break. Our staff here basically, even if they're not out patrolling, they are constantly having things interrupted because, one of the patrol deputies or corrections deputies needs something from them. And because of that, we were able to go straight 10 with a paid lunch.
Okay. Thank you for those clarifications, Sheriff. I'm in full support here.
Perfect. And I'm in support as well. It is, when we ran the assisted livings, which were another, as Karen, my previous job, another 24-hour operation, much like what the jail is. When we were short-staffed, we went to 12-hour shifts as well, because it does allow you then to only have to have 2 shifts in a 24-hour period, which allows you to stretch that out and give people that continuous time off. And I think that's a key piece that we're talking about here. It's the continuous time off, where they actually get those 3 days in a row, and where they're not having to circle back on the 6th day to pick up a shift to cover, because we're actually removing a shift, if you will. So I think it is a good option for us to try and see if that works for us. I think similarly with the 410. So I am in support as well, and I would look for a motion.
Chair, I move approval of a memorandum of agreement with the Teamsters Local Union Number 223, International Brotherhood of Teamsters of Portland, Oregon, regarding hours of work and 12-hour shift schedule for the Sheriff's Office.
And I would second.
So I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 7, which I believe we've had significant discussion regarding. Are there any questions that commissioners would like to ask for this item that did not get discussed?
I don't have additional questions, but I do wonder whether you have to read it into the record.
I can read it into the record. So in consideration of an agreement with AFSCME Local 2734 Union regarding a 410 work schedule for the Sheriff's Office. Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, I can take that motion.
So moved.
Okay.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. One more chance for any further discussion. Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Sheriff. Okay, moving on to item number 8, discussion and consideration to authorize Marlene Putman to sign a Health Resources and Services Administration HRSA-23-036 grant application for the Rural Health Network Development Program. Marlene Putman, Health and Human Services. Good morning, Marlene.
Good morning. This may sound very familiar to you because I was before you recently asking to apply for an implementation grant from the same Rural Health Network. Our team, seeing this opportunity for a planning grant, decided to postpone the implementation grant and apply for the 1-year planning grant in order to bring our healthcare partners together in what we're calling the new Healthcare Network Collaborative. So the purpose of this, I'll just read the 3 goals that we have right now in our proposal for this grant. The main focus is to improve access to care, but the goals are to improve health partner communication and collaboration to create a systemic response to community health needs. The second one is to improve the understanding of community health needs and barriers to accessing care through the use of data and community input. And the third goal is to improve community member confidence in their ability to engage and connect with community resources in order to meet their individual self-identified needs. So our focus again is to bring those partners together, including the county, Reinhardt and their new pharmacy and health center, and Adventist Health, Tillamook Family Counseling Center, Columbia Pacific CCO, into a network to look at our data, look at our health disparities, to also gather more input from the community around what those barriers are and how to meet them. We also have a work group in our Tillamook County Wellness Framework that is addressing specifically access to care. So we'll be reviewing data, identifying the barriers, and implementing strategies to address some of those barriers, including 2 items we're currently working on, which is implementation of community health workers and looking at strengthening the Connect Oregon network for a closed referral system with community nonprofit organizations and healthcare partners. So that's in essence the scope of this proposal, which is due on January 6th. The timing isn't the best given the number of people that are out and getting partner letter of support and so forth. But we plan to submit, if approved, to apply on January 3rd, and we have our good first draft completed by Friday this week. So we're feeling pretty good about timing. So this is, again, before you to consider, rather than the implementation grant, a planning grant to form this new healthcare network.
Thank you, Marlene. Questions or comments, commissioners?
No, but I think it's an exciting opportunity. I hope that you get it because it seems like it could be really beneficial.
Thank you. Commissioner Yamamoto.
Yeah, no, Marlene, I appreciate everything you're doing here. Bringing all the healthcare providers in Tillamook County basically together and sharing information and planning together as a whole Tillamook County really does make a lot of sense. This is a great concept, and I'm hoping this goes through, and I appreciate all your work on this.
Excellent, thank you, Marlene. I do as well. I know that part of the community health needs assessment that was completed, access to care, was one of the top priorities that came out of that work. And it sounds like this gives a really good platform for the next step of saying our community has spoken and access to care is extremely important. How do we work together to identify and remove the barriers? So I think it's the right next step, and I appreciate the willingness of you and your team and our full medical system to say, let's take a step back, let's make sure that we're planning carefully and moving forward appropriately. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That's right. You're exactly right with that needs assessment and the partnerships that have been developing over years. But I just feel we have a really good foundation now working together with the partners that I mentioned and a willingness to tackle some of these tough issues. I didn't mention this is a 1-year grant for up to $100,000. So we'll be using it in part for staff and some contracting consulting work to gather community input.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. I think we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval to authorize Marlene Putman to sign a Health Resources and Services Administration HRSA-23-036 grant application for the Rural Health Network Development Program.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. All right, thank you. Marlene, it looks like we have a couple more for you. So we'll move on to number 9, discussion and consideration of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 6200 with RSS Architecture PC for the Tillamook County Health Center 8th Street Annex Addition and Remodel Project. Marlene.
Yes, this does pertain to our remodel and expansion of the 8th Street property right next to our main clinic. This modification is basically extending our agreement with RSS Architecture for, 1 year through November 30th of 2023 and adding an additional $19,500 to that agreement for the management / oversight of the project with our SS Architecture, who's assisting us both in the original plan and in working with our contractors. The scope of work is attached and it's dated December 5, 2022. The scope is still consistent with the work that needs to be done with the full project.
Okay, have questions or concerns?
I do not.
Commissioner
So
Yamamoto?
do I.
Nor do I. I think this is, great opportunity. We're getting the expansion we need out of the building that we currently have, so I'm ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 6200 with RSS Architecture PC for the Tillamook County Health Center 8th Street Annex Addition and Remodel Project.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 10, discussion and consideration of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 21/22-012 with the Smile Studio for federally qualified health centers of QHC, Oregon Health Plan, Medicaid, and non-insured dental services. Marlene.
Yes, thank you again. As you know, in addition to operating our own dental clinic, we contract with 3 local dental providers, and Dr. Lee Long with the Smile Studio is one of them. So we've contracted with them for a number of years, so this contract also is probably familiar with you. This is a modification to expand the number of clients that they are seeing, again, Medicaid and underinsured clients, and modifies their rate of reimbursement. The price for services provided is $185 per encounter, which is serving a total of a minimum of 64 dental encounters per month, and the $17,500 per month, again with the minimum of the 65 to 100 dental patients encounters per month is the range for this reimbursement rate. The market rate is at least 15 to 25% higher than the rate that we reimburse, so we really appreciate the contracts we have with 3 dental providers to assist in serving these clients. And this is the flat rate, so even if they're doing a complex procedure, they still get the $185. So we know that they're stretching their practice to serve our community, and we so appreciate their work and partnership to meet these needs of our community. This has also been reviewed it's been signed by our county contractor, thank you, Rachel Haggerty, and reviewed by legal, as was the previous agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. Questions or comments, commissioners?
I'm just so grateful that this is available to people in our community. I know a number of people who have been able to get dental services who didn't have dental insurance, and it, it's life-changing because it's an important part of our health. So I'm really grateful for the work and to everyone who participates.
Thank you. Commissioner Yamamoto.
And I would concur. I mean, dental health is it's so tied to just your overall physical health in your body. And I know when people think about dental, especially for uninsured and underinsured Medicaid patients, oftentimes it's kind of poo-pooed, but this is an extremely important part of the healthcare for all individuals. And Marlene, I know you've been working on this for just so long, and you've brought great projects together for Tillamook County when it comes to dental health in particular. So we appreciate it, and I am in full support.
Excellent, thank you. And I think I remember a number, Marlene, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that when we opened our dental clinic and we received the list from Oregon Health Plan of the people that were eligible, it was over 5,000 individuals that were in need of dental care in our community. That is a staggering number when you consider that we have one dental clinic that we operate, and so these contracts become very, very important to assuring that dental care is available to everyone who needs it. So thank you for that. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 21/22-012 with the Smile Studio for the federally qualified health centers, Oregon Health Plan, Medicaid, and non-insured dental services.
And I would say,
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marlene.
Thank you and happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays.
holidays. Okay, moving on to number 11, discussion and consideration of an order in the matter of the reappointment of a member to the Tillamook County Road Advisory Committee. We have Chris Lady, Director of Public Works, with us this morning. Good morning, Chris.
Look at his holiday photo.
I love his photos.
Merry Christmas, everyone. And no, we do not intend to install signals in the county. So with Christmas upon us, I just want to remind people, county, state, cities are actively applying magnesium chloride to the road to help minimize ice, and potential looking at snow plows and sanding trucks. Don't crowd the plow, drive safe. Take additional time with that. The road department is advised with the citizens, the County Roadway Advisory Committee. There's a grand total of 8 people that represent North Central and South County. Part of that is they serve limited terms for 3 years. Gus Meyer's been a fabulous supporter of the road department, and this is to extend his appointment as a member from December 2022 through December of 2025.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Commissioners, questions or comments?
I am grateful for Gus Meyer's work on the County Roads Advisory Committee, as am I grateful for all of the participants' work. And Gus in particular is just, he's delightful to work with. He frequently sends us very thoughtful, well-researched emails, and I'm grateful that he's willing to extend on this committee, so that's great.
Commissioner Yamamoto?
I'm in the same boat here. Gus not only provides services to the crack, but to so many other areas. We always see him at our Tillamook Lightwave meetings. I mean, he's just everywhere. And he continues to do great work. So I appreciate that very much.
And I'm in complete agreement. Gus is also on our short-term rental advisory committee. And, you know, again, as you mentioned, he always does very thoughtful, well-researched. He shows up and he brings good ideas. So we appreciate Gus and his service to the county.
All right, ready for an order? Madam Chair, I move approval of order number 22-070 in the matter of the reappointment of Gus Meyer to the Tillamook County Road Advisory Committee.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Gus. Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Chris, it looks like we have another one for you, and that is discussion and consideration of modification number 4 to license agreement number 3159 with the Oregon Department of Forestry.
So this has been an ongoing license agreement between the Oregon Department of Forestry going back to 1997. It is for essentially a stockpile of materials off of the Kilchis River Road. It is essentially a joint use, and this allows ODF and county to utilize the same space. Essentially, all this does is extend the agreement out to May 28th of 2027.
Thank you. Questions or concerns, Commissioners?
No, terrific.
Commissioner Yamamoto?
And that's it, just extending the license agreement out till 2027.
Thank you. David, any comments or questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, it's interesting, everyone else on the call I can hear. Sometimes the room, audio disappears, but no, I appreciate that. I'm sure many of you have heard me rail on the Oregon Department of Forestry before, but there are so many areas which ODF really provides terrific services. Fighting fire is one of them, and I will point out that the local ODF office here in Tillamook, I mean, every person in that office just does an outstanding job in the Tillamook State Forest and for all of Tillamook County. So we appreciate that very much, and I'm in full support here.
Thank you. And I am in support as well. We're ready for the motion.
Madam Chair, excuse me, I move approval of modification number 4 to license agreement number 3159 with the Oregon Department of Forestry.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Do I hear any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you. All right, Chris, we will continue on. We have item number 13, which is discussion and consideration of amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement A136-G0092418 with the Oregon Department of Transportation for right-of-way services to the Dry Creek Bridge and Crystal Creek Bridge, Miami Foley Road, Tillamook project. Chris?
So this is two culverts that failed in the 2015-2016 storm under emergency relief funds utilizing federal highway money. Federal highway money has been, ODOT is managing this project, including the right-of-way for this. Based on some of the stock changes from federal standards to ODOT that ODOT must comply with, the modification states that the agency shall take possession of acquired property. We are the agency, in that it would be changed to the state shall take possession of the acquired property. Typically what happens in that particular case is once the state is done and they've utilized the federal funds, then the property is transferred to the county. So really it's a function of complying with the federal requirements. The other thing that happens with this under the right-of-way agreement is a name change, just to better reflect what's actually occurring on the ground.
Thank you. Questions or comments, Commissioners?
No, I'm glad ODOT's managing that and it's finally getting done. I was in another meeting recently where we were talking about that we are still dealing with damage from the 2015 storm. So that seems outrageous to me, but I'm glad that these culverts are finally getting replaced.
Commissioner Yamamoto?
I'm in full agreement here. This is great work by our Public Works Department, by ODOT, and with help from the federal government. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. And I'm in agreement. It seems so often the only way that our roads can be repaired is in those partnerships where we have state and federal funding assisting, because it's just necessary but very, very expensive to replace culverts and bridges. So I appreciate Chris's work to bring it all together and make it happen, and I agree. That 2015 storm was exceptionally damaging. I know we have lots of them, but hopefully we're getting close to the end of these repairs from 2015. We can hope. Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move approval of amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement A136-G0092418 with the Oregon Department of Transportation for right-of-way services for the Dry Creek Bridge and Crystal Creek Bridge, Miami Foley Road, Tillamook project.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Okay, and another one, discussion and consideration of a contract for goods with Pacifica Piling for the Illingsworth Creek Bridge Foundation Materials Project. Chris?
So this is a Salmon Superhighway project. It is it has money from NOAA Community Grant, so the project is funded. The issue, they're running through a little bit of landowner, trying to work through some of those issues, but we wanted to move forward with the acquisition of materials. So the future, in January, after the board comes together, we'll have another one for the beams that go with that. This one in particular, we went out for 3 quotes. We received, Pacifica Piling was the low bidder on that. This will require 600 feet of it's steel pipe. It is it's a 1/2 inch thick wall, 12 3/4 inch in diameter. Often these beams your bridges are sitting on these piles in order to support the load and to help with seismic considerations. Total cost on this is $42,473.25.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments, Commissioners?
No, I think it's great.
Okay, Commissioner Yamamoto?
Yeah, but I just have to say that, again, it's another great partnership with some federal dollars involved because of Salmon Superhighway, which is, they do just terrific work in conjunction with our watershed councils, in conjunction with our Public Works Department. again, we could not get this kind of work done on our own. We just couldn't. It's the partnerships that we have. County Superhighway is just a terrific new partner that we have in this type of restoration work. These types of bridges and culvert repairs, things of that nature. Again, we can't do that on our own. So the partnerships are the way to go. So first off, I want to thank you. Thanks, Salmon Superhighway. Let's get her done.
Perfect, thank you, and I am in agreement. Let's get the materials on hand. We know that in today's world, ordering sooner rather than later is a good choice, so let's get them ordered. So I'm in support.
Madam Chair, I move approval of a contract for goods with Pacifica Piling for the Illingsworth Creek Bridge Foundation Materials Project.
And I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 15, which is discussion and consideration of a solid waste violation at 22250 East Beaver Creek Road, Cloverdale, Tillamook County, Oregon, 3S-9W-16-1200. David McCall, Solid Waste Program Manager for Public Works, will present for us, and then we will take the opportunity to hear comments from Mr. Hunter following David McCall's presentation.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. So, for the record, David McCall, Tillamook County Solid Waste Program Manager. And what I am here to present to you today is a case, solid waste violation at 22250 East Beaver Creek Road in Cloverdale. This is a site that has had various solid waste violations going back several years. In response to several complaints, this year in May, I conducted an investigation at the site. At that time, I found that there was a significant amount of trash that was in a pile there, as well as what I counted as well over 100 tires that were piled up in kind of a mountain that had gone from East Beaver Creek down into the bottom of the property. There was a vertical difference of probably 50, 60 feet between the road of East Beaver Creek and the property at that point, and tires had been piled up, and in the attempt to make kind of a road approach or a hill or some kind of access to that. At that time, it was also accompanied by representatives from the Department of Environmental Quality who happened to be in town that day. And so in the meantime, I issued a letter to the property owner, Judith DeBray, requiring her to clean up the violation, get rid of the tires and the trash within 30 days. She called me a couple weeks later and informed me that she had been working on it but needed some more time. I granted her a time extension. I went back and did a follow-up on this site. I found that they had taken care of the trash issues. The trash had been removed or stacked up, piled up, covered in things, so the trash was no longer an issue, but the tires were still an issue. Tires are a significant threat to the environment. When they are exposed to the elements, meaning primarily sun and wind, they break down and leach into the soil around them. There are 4 known heavy metals that come out of tires. In general, those are cadmium, chromium, lead, and zinc. And there are also several chemicals that also come across once the pH level is below 7. And just as a reference point of information, in Oregon, the average soil pH is between 4.8 and 6.2. So almost all the soil that we deal with is below a 7. So therefore, tires are a significant risk. Oregon state law requires that any compilation or storage of tires of more than 100 tires receives a separate permit from the Department of Environmental Quality. That is in part due to mosquito threats, because tires, because when they don't have a rim in them, because of their rounded shape, accumulate water. And when the sun hits those tires, it heats up the water and they become mosquito breeding grounds. So DEQ has a permitting authority for the storage of more than 100 tires. There have been numerous letters that have gone to Ms. DeBray and her son, Mr. Hunter, to which they have sent a couple of responses. Ms. DeBray responded to me in a letter, which you have in the packet. Mr. Hunter responded to DEQ in one letter. DEQ had also required them to remove all the tires from the site and provide proof where they had been disposed of. To the best of my knowledge, DEQ has not received any such proof. I was at the sites following extensions on October 6th. So you have in the packet, you have a whole listing of the various dates on which we were there and of all the letters that have been sent. On October 6th, I was at the site, met with Mr. Hunter personally there. At that time, many tires from the pile or the road approach had been removed and put on the edge of the property, which looked like he was building a fence out of those. At that time, I counted at least 134 truck tires there, which is, as I mentioned, over the 100 limit, but also not permissible. There could still be tires seen at the bottom of the pile where this unpermitted road approach had been constructed. The road department also sent a letter requiring him to either permit it or remove it. I granted Mr. Hunter a 15-day extension, and he agreed that by the time of that extension, he would not only remove the tires from the property, but he would also apply for a road approach permit to the county road department, and proving that there were no tires contained in the construction of that road approach. Because tires over time break down and they lose their stability, therefore they cannot be used in a stable base. And he assured me he was going to take off the planking from this and go and provide evidence that there were no tires in this fill there. And the deadline for that was set at October 22nd, 2022. I gave them a little extra time following that and went and inspected the site on November 9th of 22. Found that all the tires could still be seen. Some rearrangements had been made along this fence that he'd been made. Rather than 4 high, they were 3 high, and the ones he'd taken off were piled in stacks down off to the side. I have received no evidence that a single tire has been removed for the property and properly disposed. The tires are still in violation there. Basically reached the limits of what I can try to achieve with this, and in accordance with Ordinance 4, Section 9.4, the next step is we can request that the commissioners hold a hearing on this and determine that the violation needs to be abated. The commissioners can set a time limit, so a deadline to abate that. That time limit must be no less than 10 days. So you need to provide the property. If you determine that it is a violation, you agree with us, you need to give the owner at least 10 days to abate the violation, which I would recommend being the removal of all the tires and the road approach from that site. And if that does not occur within the given time frame, then the commissioners have the option of authorizing the solid waste administrator to take actions, to go onto the property and remove the violation ourselves, and calculate all of gather all of those costs together and charge the owner for that. And that would be a separate hearing when that occurs. So once all the costs are known, it would be a separate hearing to determine what the costs are, giving the owner a deadline by which to pay, and if not, a lien can be filed on the property. But what I'm asking you to do today is to take this step of confirming that there is a violation at this property, and require the owner to abate the violation by removing all of the tires and the road approach from this property, restoring it to what it could be, and within a reasonable period of time, no less than 10 days. Okay? Any questions at this point?
Not at this point. Thank you. The packet is very thorough. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Yamamoto, questions at this point for David?
No, I agree with Commissioner Bell. Appreciate all the work, all the effort that's going into this. One question, so when your packet talks about the administrator, that would be you, David, solid waste? You are the administrator?
No.
As
The
in your packet?
The solid waste administrator is Chris Lady, Director of Public Works. I operate on his behalf.
Thank you.
One thing I did not mention, so I did visit the property last week on December 16th. Once again, only from the road. And fortunately had the opportunity for a little bit better light conditions. And so I have a picture that shows a little bit better what it's at this point than, because what you have in the packet is a little dark and it's hard to see. In this picture, it's a little better. You can see the fence made out of tires somewhere here along that, and I'm more than happy to share that with you. So, but as of December 16th, the violation had not been abated.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I do not have any questions at this time. So hearing no questions, Mr. Hunter, would you like to come and address the board?
Yes, I would.
Please step right up and that microphone is on for the benefit of others in the room.
Well, I do understand what he means by solid waste.
Sir, can we ask you to identify yourself, please?
I'm Warren Hunter, the son of Judy DeBray. I live at 22250 East Beaver Creek Road.
Thank you.
And I've been having an ongoing feud with Mr. Mahana, my neighbor. And it just seems like ever since I got down onto the property, this man has done everything in his power. He has called the sheriff on me for every little thing. And
Mr. Hunter, may you keep your
has relevance to this,
Because what
okay?
we're concerned about is the violation
Right.
for the paper, not your relationship with Mr.
Okay,
Mahana.
right.
So if you could please address your relationship to the county process,
Okay.
not Mr. Mahana.
Well, when I first got the first loads of tires dropped off, it was for the driveway, like you said. I took them, well, he called me in because they all got dumped down there and a couple of them went close to the creek. So we got the first violation, and I went over there and I moved the tires for the purpose that I ordered them for in the first place, was to put a retaining wall up so that when they put the driveway in, the gravel wouldn't go down into the field. Okay? Well, the deal we had made is that when they tore out the county tore out the first bridge on East Beaver Creek Road, they had a bunch of debris that they were hauling off. My mother stopped and asked them what they were doing with it and if they wanted to. We were trying to put a driveway in. They said, well, all that debris was taken, but they would be tearing out the next bridge up the line in a year. So we waited, and sure enough, at that time, I put the tires up as a barrier. They started tearing out the bridge and started dumping to make me a driveway, because they said, yeah, if you take the debris, we'll make you a nice driveway. We were like, great, you know. So they started dumping the debris. Well, as soon as they started dumping the debris, Mr. Mahana went over there and did something or said something to him, or I don't know what he did, but he took all of that gravel that I was supposed to get for that driveway for what they were doing and had a parking lot and a new driveway put in at his place, which I still don't understand why, but that stopped all of it. So they dumped all of the refuge, all of the asphalt, all of the concrete, and all that stuff on my property, and then gave him all the gravel, which I don't understand. I mean, he even had the county's equipment over there grading it out and making him a driveway.
Once again, I'm going to ask you if you can return your remarks to the violation.
To the violation, okay.
I understand that you
Now,
have
he
a
wanted me to
relationship,
move the
but-
tires, and DEQ did too.
Correct.
So I went down there and I took all the tires off of the hillside there, and I wanted to make a berry fence. Which, imagine these tires all like the picture there. Okay, imagine those filled with dirt and berries growing out of them, because berries love the heat from the tires. It just makes them just flourish and do great. And I had other things that I wanted to do with tires, because I've been looking it up as for reusing and using, old tires to build things. They make them for walls, retaining walls. I mean, people use them in gardens, playgrounds, trails are made with them. I wanted to show how you could recycle tires. That was my whole point of this thing, and not to mention they're free. I'm not a very rich man. So I was going to utilize what I had access to. Now, when he told me that I was over the 100, I went down there and took one off of all of them, and I got them up there on a trailer. I haven't moved them off the property yet because I can't afford to pay for the dump fee at this time. But they are all sitting on a trailer ready to go. right at the top of the hill. And, you know, if I gotta stay under the 100 limit, then that's fine, but, you know, I had planned to do quite a few nice things with the tires, and I don't have any tires that are within 50 to 100 feet of the creek.
So, Mr. Hunter, if I understand correctly, you,
And the driveway.
are aware of the 100 tire limit and the need to.
Yes, he told me to take, you know, but my question is when does solid waste not become solid waste when you reuse it? I mean, in construction, I mean, houses are built with stuff that is solid waste and they throw piles out there, you know, that people go through and they use for other things. When does solid waste not become solid waste and becomes a usable material again? Because Oregon is supposed to be leading in the states for finding more uses and reuses for spare tires or old tires. And I just, you know, I've looked up Mother Earth News. I mean, I've done a little research on it, and I thought that it would be great to be able to use, you know, the used tires for something other than landfill. Because, you know, what you're telling me is that I have to take the tires that I was going to use for construction and take them to the dump so that they can bury them under the ground and use them for fill. And there are no tires underneath that gravel pile. Guaranteed. The ones that are on the bottom there, I can't get them out yet because there's big chunks of concrete on it and my tractor's got a broken tie rod. But I will remove those. And going down the driveway, I've already removed half the timbers and the tires that were right under those. Now I have the other half still to do and take pictures of to give to you, right? I'm only one man and the weather just hasn't let me do it.
Okay, so just to recap what I think I'm hearing from you, that you felt and had hoped to be able to use tires in a creative way.
Yes.
What you now know is that in the state of Oregon and with the restrictions related to tires, that is not an opportunity that exists for you on your property with anything more than 100 tires unless you apply for DEQ. So what we're talking about today is the need to remove tires, and I believe what I've heard you say is that you are understanding that and working to comply with that, and time is the challenge that you are currently facing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, are there questions that you have? I believe that's the understanding that we have at the moment, is that you do intend to comply with this and that time is currently your
right.
concern.
If we move forward with issuing the violation, we would do so with the caveat of offering you X number of days to clean this up before the county comes in and cleans it up. So how long would you need?
Well, like I said, I have, 30 some odd tires on that trailer right now. I need to get rid of another 10 to 15 to get me under the 100 limit. Okay? Now, Ghost and Go, I guess I can go talk to Averill and see if he can make a deal with me to make a payment plan on taking the tires to the dump, because that's the only thing I can do with it, you know. I can't think of anything else because I don't have the cash funds. I've got things for sale, you know, to try and pay for this, but nobody's buying them. But other than that, you know, I am working, so, you know, I do have money coming in, so I can get rid of so many each paycheck. Or like I said, I can get rid of all of them if I talk to Jason, you know, maybe he will, or not Jason, but Aaron, and see if he can make, I know Aaron pretty well, so he might make a deal with me so I can do that. As for the driveway approach, I'd like to know if I can make payments to get that to pay for the permit, you know. I don't know if you can or not make a payment plan to pay for the permit on the driveway. But the debris that was dumped there by the county to make me a driveway until Mahana stepped in and took all the gravel from me. You know, and I know dang well that his driveway was put in the same time, and I know dang well he didn't get a permit for his driveway, you know, but his is all finished, so it looks complete, and you would think it was there forever.
So there are two issues that we're dealing with. One is the tires, and so what I think I heard you say is that you need time, and Commissioner Bowser
Yes.
said I'll ask you how much time, and I think we do need some definitive answer.
I will get rid of all those tires within a couple of weeks.
Okay. The second issue is the road approach, the driveway road approach, and what I think I hear you saying is there's a financial constraint in your ability to apply for a permit.
Right.
That's why you have not complied at this time.
That is correct.
That correct? Okay, and then the question is amount of time needed for funds to apply. I don't believe that the county does payment plans so that we would entertain.
Yeah, I know.
So I think
But see, I thought it would have been an easy, at first, when the county said that they would put in, tearing the bridge down and put in a driveway for us, I thought that was cool. I didn't even know we needed a permit at that time. I wasn't informed of this until later on down the line, when the driveway didn't get finished, and then it became the attention of you guys, and you have to do your job, and I understand that, But, I would have thought that was an even thing, well, I take all your debris, and I get a driveway. I would have thought it was a give and take, because I'm sure it's happened. And Mr. Yamamoto, is that how you say it?
Yamamoto.
You live on East Beaver Creek?
I'm sorry?
You live on East Beaver Creek?
No.
Oh, I thought you did, because that thing with Sand Lake that you were talking about in the garbage, I had nothing to do with that. They tried to push their way onto our property. I did everything in my power to get them off the road. I knew of them,
Yeah,
but we have taken harassment from our neighbors for all of that, and I cleaned up all garbage and everything that was on that property. It is clean completely now.
okay, so we can go back to the road approach. And Chris, if you are with us, lady, can I ask you to share for my benefit, the road approach process that needs to happen? For road approach?
Sure. Prior to any construction, the developer, owner, contractor, it's really the owner that applies for a road approach permit. That is either a construction approach or a permanent approach that would go with that. Then we evaluate each site, we take a look at that, and we make sure that it's deemed safe or unsafe. If we disagree with the site, we would let the owner know that this is not a safe location to put a driveway approach. In addition to that, we also look at the means and methods of construction of the approach, and is this reasonable for the public? And the materials we would not approve. We would not approve of tires as a base for this approach.
I agree.
And then once we agree to it, then the fee is submitted and it is processed with an approved approach.
Okay, thank you. A question, just to follow up, the material that he's indicating was dumped by the county. Are you aware of that, and can you address anything related to that?
And that's actually incorrect. So the Holgate Bridge is the one that's located right there. So material that is removed from that bridge, none of which included tires. No tires were removed from that existing bridge. So when a contractor goes in and takes the removal of that, the contractor then at that point owns the material. How the contractor chooses to dispose of it is very common for a contractor to go into agreements, private to private connections with the individual landowners. That does not absolve the requirements of the landowner as far as that goes. Again, there's no tires that were removed from the Holgate Bridge, and nor was an approach permit granted. Neither did the county did not dump material on anybody's property or had any communication or coordination with the landowner taking gravel from one other landowner's location.
Okay, thank you. So that would have been related to a contractor that was doing work.
Subcontractor, yeah, probably.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
I have a question for you. Can you get a hold of the subcontractor to confirm that he did not bury any tires when he dumped that?
We have seen ample tires on that approach, and the approach is the landowner's responsibility, not the contractor, subcontractor, or whoever be it. It is the landowner's responsibility for that material that is on that location.
Okay, because I only use those tires as a barrier to keep that gravel and concrete from going out any further into the field.
And those tires, as you're hearing, cannot be a part of the approach.
Right,
So
then they were being removed.
If it were to be permitted. Commissioner Yamamoto, I think we've sort of left you out of questions as you were online, so I'd like to go ahead and give you an opportunity to ask questions that you may have.
Well, I've got several. First of all, we're hearing from Warren Scott Hunter, who apparently is the son of Judith Debray, And yet the property is not in the name of Warren Hunter. It's in the property of apparently his mother, Judith Debray. So I'm concerned, first of all, if we make any kind of an arrangement with Mr. Hunter, I'm not sure how that applies to the property owner, which is under apparently his mother's name. That's very concerning to me. This goes back to at least May of 2019, when we see a court order from a justice court judge. And in the intervening years, I mean, Public Works has been involved, Solid Waste has been involved, DEQ has been involved with demands and things, and those have all been just ignored.
I addressed DEQ.
Sir, if I can complete, please.
Okay.
So I'm very concerned if we allow additional time here, that's just going to take up the time of, again, Public Works and Solid Waste and DEQ and now the Board of Commissioners, moving step by step by step. When this is an environmental issue that really just needs to be taken care of in an appropriate time frame. And so, first of all, I'm concerned that we're talking to the right person because the property is not in his name. And again, all the past infractions and letters and demands that have been made have been just unanswered. So I'm very concerned about all that moving forward.
Okay, as for the notices and stuff that were sent in 2019, the ones that my mother got, and she went to court or whatever on it, and she got fined $750. I was unaware that there was a statement in any of that paperwork that said that we had to remove all tires, but I did pay that $750 myself. And I'm not going to let anything happen or my mom get any fines or anything over something that I've done. You know, I've taken full responsibility of this and I will stand by it. To get the rest of these tires out of here to get down to my 100, you guys were talking about 10 days. If 10 days is what it is, and 10 days is what it is, I'll get them out of there. As for the driveway approach, I'm going to see if I can borrow some money from somebody that's the only thing I can do. I mean, I just ain't got it.
So one of the other issues I have here is that you keep saying that you want to get the number of tires on your property below 100, and I'm not exactly sure how we verify that the tires you've removed will equate to only leaving less than 100 tires on your property unless we do a full removal of all the fill and debris that you put down in that road approach area.
I didn't put the debris down there. On the road approach that's coming up to the debris that the contractors dropped off, yes, I put tires in that center section there and covered them up with boards so that as I could get my tractor out. Well, I've removed half of those already and all the tires underneath it. Now I got the other half to remove and all the tires underneath it, and I have to take pictures of it and send it to him. As for the rest of the tires, he's seen all the tires that are down there, and I have had no other tires brought down there. And I'm just going to try and conform.
Address the tire number and where our line lies and how that would be confirmed.
So in county ordinance, we don't set any number of tires. That's DEQ has a requirement if you can only have more than 100 if you obtain a DEQ permit. That's where the 100 comes into play. On the county level, we don't make a distinction between 2 and 99. So, you know, if disposal of tires is disposal of tires, it should not happen, but we don't have any limits in place on our county. The 100 comes into the DEQ permitting process.
And so,
David,
I have a question for you there. So, but if indeed tires were used in developing that road approach, which is illegal because a permit has never been issued, those would all have to be removed also, right? Regardless of how many, because the road approach does not allow tires to be utilized in the design of a road approach. Am I correct there? Or maybe Chris needs to answer that. I don't know.
Even as a retaining
Yes.
wall? As a temporary retaining wall?
We would not allow the use of tires for anything to do with anything to do with that, and the use of tires on private property is entirely different than the use of tires within the right of way.
Yeah.
So the other thing is a copy of the road approach permit had been sent. The road approach permit fee is only $583. So the tires, the $583 for a road approach, we would not approve tires within the right of way, would not approve the use of tires for the use of the road approach. And nor was the road approach ever processed because it was never submitted, even though the form was provided.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So I think that where we have arrived, if I'm not mistaken, is that we have confirmation that you need to remove the road
Right.
approach as it stands now, that you don't have a permit for it. The tires that are embedded in it need to be removed, and that Public Works would determine if you were to put in a road approach permit, they would determine and probably require you to be able to see underneath that so they know that the materials used are appropriate. So I think from that perspective, you're somewhat in a position where you will need to essentially, if you choose to apply for the road approach, you will need to be able to prove that that is built.
Right, that's why I was asking if we could get a hold of the subcontractor that put it down, because,
That would be between you and the subcontractor, that would
Right.
not be something for.
and I don't know who those people are, they do.
Yeah, and that would not be something we were involved in, that was assigned to the county. So it appears at this point, where we sit is working with you to give that time frame by which your tires need to
Okay.
be removed and by which your illegal road approach similarly needs to be removed, and you need to. go
Can't I
back
just
and
pull the
start.
tires out and then have him come down and inspect it?
Chris, an answer to that question?
Because I don't have any equipment that's gonna move those big blocks of concrete that they tore from the bridge out. I just don't have anything that's gonna move that.
So when we get into this, there's a couple different things. We've got the tires that are ongoing and the tires that are down in the base of that. So from a
Right.
timing of sequence and construction and removal in the rain event, it tearing out that road approach may or may not make it very difficult to remove the tires on the property. And that would need to be an understanding of what that is. Not interested in sending a crew down there. So from a public works or road department point of view, if it is a threat to the road, the right of way, the road department, and there's been ample notice, if we go down there to do that work, we would, it would be a charge to you for our services in order to do that, and that will definitely be well in excess of $583 for that permit. In addition to that, we would need some type of an entry form from the actual owner of the property to enter onto the property in order to make a determination of what is actually out there. And then the timing and the weather in order to make sure that our vehicles don't get stuck. So, but I think first and foremost is from the landowner, the actual property owner, what is the proposal as far as the sequence of removal? Again, this has been going on since 2019. There's been ample notices, and no permits been applied. So I think the next step, if we want to go through a forward motion, is what is the proposal from the landowner?
Is that if we remove these tires within 10 days and can pay for the permit for the road approach within these 10 days, that we might have a feasible way to get this
And
done?
I'm going to refer to council because we do have a question about the ownership. So if we were to,
I was gonna address that. It's
Yeah.
right out of the ordinance. The owner of the property that is a location of violation shall be responsible for the abatement. The owner shall be considered responsible for the actions of any tenants or any other persons lawfully using the property. So it's, if you think an abatement has to occur, the board shall issue an order for abatement or ordering the owner to abate the violation within the time fixed by the board, as David said, which time shall be not less than 10 days. So the owner is the responsible party even
For me, yeah.
Right.
when he undertakes. So
Sure.
that addresses Commissioner Yamamoto's question.
Sure. So at this point, if we were to move forward with an order that required abatement, we would address that order, not obviously to Mr.
To me,
Hunter,
but to my mother, yes.
Your mother, who is the owner of the property, and then it would be upon her to do this work. And so you
Right.
may be here representing, but ultimately,
Yes.
any order that comes forward would be to your mother.
Right.
Okay.
I have an additional question
Yes.
for Dave. So how exactly does the tires play into the violation? Or is the county asking, is solid waste asking for all of the tires to be removed from the property? Or what are we asking specific to the tires? I understand about the road approach.
So my preference would be all tires, but I understand there may be, people do use tires for things and they have, spare tires and things. My recommendation would be that if the board does want to set some limit, that they set that limit there. We have the 100 where DEQ kicks in. That doesn't mean that Tillamook County needs to stick with that same 100. We could if you'd like, but it could be a lower limit as well. I mean, I see along this site, so this, we'll call the fence with the neighbors, I counted from the recent picture 33 stacks of 3, that's 99 tires, plus 40 or 50 stacked up along the other side in addition to those on the trailers. I am not convinced that building a fence out of tires is a beneficial use. DEQ also has a process, so if you want to utilize a waste material, be it tires or anything else, for something other than the standard recycling methods, that you submit basically an environmental cost benefit analysis called a preferential use or beneficial use process, that you say this is like what I would like to do with it, these are the emissions or whatever that happens with it, which is still a beneficial use from an environmental perspective. It's my understanding they made Mr. Hunter aware of that possibility, but he didn't go through that process to do it. If someone were to go through that process and justify a fence or something, then that may be something DEQ does authorize. But I would recommend that the commissioners consider, if they don't want to do a full abatement of the requirement of the tires, set some number, which is justifiably what is something that someone could be using for some justifiable use, but not a waste. We don't want to have used tire depots popping up all over, which is why they're causing problems.
Sure, completely agree. I think I'm looking at maybe Commissioner Bell is as well as where our line of authority lands with that, and I'm looking at County Council. Do we have authority to say that he must remove all but 15 tires? I mean, is that within our rights in this hearing process?
Of course.
I did write DEQ a letter and took a picture of the very fence that I was building, and I never got any report or word back from them whatsoever. And I figured that they accepted that as a different use of the tires because they will be filled with dirt. They will not be able to breed mosquitoes, And like I said, the berries are going to just thrive like crazy with the heat and the sun. It'll be really nice.
Other questions, commissioners, before
So,
we seek our
So
solution?
I'm looking through all the pictures and, I see stacks, I see a whole line of 2 tires on their sides and then 1 tire on top of each one of these stacks. So Mr. Hunter said they will be filled with dirt and so no water will be collecting in them. But again, from what we've seen so far, we've got no compliance with anything. And I just, not knowing how many tires are already buried and possibly non-retrievable, I would just ask that all of the tires that are currently not buried be removed and disposed of, and no additional tires be brought onto the property. And Mr. Hunter, one question I would ask you is that, have you been purchasing these tires, or are people paying you to dispose of these tires for them?
No, sir.
Where are all these tires coming from?
I originally ordered them and got them from Tillamook Tire. But see, with the 100 tire limit, shouldn't they be aware of how many tires they can dump on a person's property?
Well,
I'm just curious, I mean,
someone else.
Ultimately, it's the property owner, right?
right, I didn't know either, so it should have been my fault for not looking it up.
Becomes your responsibility.
Right, now, I understand that.
So Commissioner Yamamoto, go ahead.
So yeah, it's just a situation where, this is a nuisance. It is an absolute nuisance, and we have to take into account public testimony that we received this morning, as well as several emails that we have received about this public nuisance, and it is a nuisance. So again, not knowing how many tires are buried and unretrievable on this property, I would ask that all of the tires, the stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of tires that we see that are visible, just need all be removed and no further tires brought onto the property.
Right.
Mr. Hunter, I don't believe you still answered my question. So did Tillamook Tire pay you to take these tires away?
No, sir. Not at all.
Did you pay them for these tires?
No, sir.
And therein lies the problem. This is a disposal problem, and these tires need to be disposed of.
Well, like I said, I took them all off the driveway except for that bottom layer that when we were pulling the tires off, it came down and it filled it in. So I should have my tractor fixed here within the week, and then I can yank those out along with the rest of the tires that are right there on the approach. But I've been using the approach to get the tires out that I have up on the trailer.
And I'm looking at pictures, and apparently these aren't being considered because maybe they're not in the road approach area. But again, having hundreds of tires, and when I just look at these pictures that I'm looking at, there are hundreds of tires. It is a nuisance, and certainly does not meet the DEQ standard of 100 tires or less. I'm not even sure we want to use that 100 tires or less standard in this. I just think all of these tires need to be removed from your property because they are a nuisance. They need to be disposed of properly, and we're going to need receipts for that. I'm not sure you can do this in 10 days or even 20 days.
There's no way I can remove all those tires in 10 days. That's just, that's almost impossible. And you're stating that I can't reuse any tires on anything, or like in a garden or even anything now?
So again, my concern here is how do we know exactly how many less than 100 tires you have on your property with all the buried tires that you're already talking about that can't be removed?
So I would
Therein lies my
and
problem.
I would like to refer to county council one more time. If we are to ask Mr. Hunter to remove 100% of his tires, is there a precedent now being set across the county? Are we now putting ourselves in line of something that we need to be thoughtful about as we put our statements in order?
Well, to add to that, just before you respond, Bill, the question of what is appropriate for us to ask of people on private property? So I'm concerned about how are we gonna ask a private property owner to remove all the tires on your property? Is that appropriate? I totally agree that the road approach needs to be eliminated. There can't be any tires in the right of way. And whatever else, all of the additional violations. But in terms of private property rights, how does this apply here?
Well, if there's a solid waste violation, Commissioner Bell, then the board can order it to be abated, and David and the crew, if it doesn't get David and the solid waste crew or the road department crew can go in there and take it off themselves, right on the private property. The ordinance gives you that authority to do so. Commissioner Scar, I don't know about how many tires. I mean, I see a few tires on people's property too, so I don't know about the precedent, but
It just occurs to me as precedent and as concern when we set for precedent.
Yeah.
Do you have a
So I have a possible suggestion.
Thank you.
So in Ordinance 4, Section 801 AA, which you don't have in the packet because it's a different section, but just saving you the search.
Thank you.
We do have provisions as to how many inoperable vehicles can be kept on property out in the open. So if somebody has a large garage or shop and they have, 10 in there, we don't see that. That's not what we see, but for the public view, so within 200 feet of a public right-of-way. And depending on where you are in the county, there are certain areas where it's 2, but the majority of the county, we allow maximum 3 inoperable vehicles for up to 90 days within a 12-month period of time.
Okay.
So using that logic, if we would say 3 vehicles, 4 tires per vehicle, that's 12. Maybe you add on a couple vehicles that people actually use and drive around in with summer and winter tires. That's an extra 4 per vehicle, 8 tires, that gets you to 20. Just a suggestion.
Sure. No, and I appreciate that because I think that it's very challenging and I think we're,
And what about using how many gardens?
Abate the solid waste concern. I don't think that's what's in question. I think what's in question and concern for me is similar to what Commissioner Bell stated, which is where do we end on personal property rights? And how do we create something that we can actually manage and make happen? Because I think that's another piece of it, right? So I'm not in a disagreement that we have a solid waste issue and a violation here that absolutely must be cleaned up and we have a road
Right,
approach.
I understand that driveway access, the whole 9 yards. But I still would really like to know is when does solid waste not become solid waste? When it's reused?
Not a question I have a definitional answer for. What I can suggest at this time is that DEQ has identified that tires are something that become a dangerous waste item, and we know that there's a breakdown there that becomes dangerous in our soils and otherwise. So I think, we have a piece there around what happens to tires and how that plays into the environmental hazards in our county that we don't want to see. Tillamook County is well known for being a clean, healthy place, and we want to keep it that way.
Well, I would have thought if she still thought it was solid waste, when I sent her the pictures of the berry fence, that she would have said, no, this is still in violation and you need to remove,
And I can't speak to what
Right.
DEQ's communication was. I don't have that full strength. So
As for the rest, I agree with you. I mean, I gotta clean that up and I gotta get rid of that stuff,
we do. So I think the question in front of us, I think I hear consensus, which we will move to a vote on this, as this is a hearing with deliberation and decision. But I think I hear consensus from our commissioners that we would like to see this abated. I think the 2 questions that remain is what is the standard to which it is abated, which we're working on. Thank you for the suggestion, David. The by when in terms of the abatement. And Chris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so we have the area of the approach. We have the area from the creek to the road. But when we start looking at property on the other side of the creek is also the property, and some additional tires have been placed there. That's not necessarily evident in really what's been discussed. So I guess the question would remain if we go with the 20 tires, and obviously setback limits from the creek, is there still a fair amount of tires on the other side of the creek that have been brought in? They're all within one property. So I think when we start looking for that is some clarity as far as what will be removed.
Thank you. So we would be talking all tires on the property, not
There's-
just this particular.
There's like 3 sets of tires on the other side and they all go to vehicles that are there. And when I asked DEQ about that, if it included the tires that go to my vehicles, because I have trailers and I have vehicles, are those included in this 100 tire solid waste thing? And she said no, that they were not.
So if we are using the tires available as David suggested, those tires would be part of your 20. If that's the
Yeah,
standard.
by what he suggested, yes.
They would be part of your 20 if that's the standard we decide on.
Well, what if you have more than 4 rigs? I mean, I got
That's
trailers.
my suggestion.
I mean, I got 6 trailers, and I have 5 vehicles. So what would that be? And they all run. They're all,
Yeah. So commissioners, thoughts on how we move forward?
I am going to propose that we require abatement of all tires in the right of way, abatement of all the unpermitted, all the material in the unpermitted road approach, disposal of all materials at a permitted facility within X amount of days, and additionally, removal of tires in excess of 20 from the property in total.
We have 20 tires on the property.
Perhaps the tires in excess of those somehow relating to the vehicles that we have. I think that's what I'm hearing is that 20 tires may require the removal of tires from trailers or other vehicles that
Right.
exist on the
No,
property.
I
So
don't
you're
mean
saying-
tires on vehicles.
So 20 tires in excess of those currently on existing vehicles.
What about the ones that go to the vehicles, like you got sets of studs and stuff like that? I mean, are we, do you,
Those are in your 20 of extra tires that you're allowed to have on your property. The studs, if they're not on a vehicle, they're part of your 20, even if they are associated with the vehicle.
so is this gonna be throughout the county?
This is for.
Or just for me?
This is the abatement of the hazard that you have created on your property, which has placed you in a position.
So I can't use any of those tires in a garden or anything?
Not if it's going to take more than 20 beyond what's on your existing vehicles. That's our current conversation.
What-
Commissioner Yamamoto, do you have thoughts related to that piece of the conversation?
Yes, that piece where DEQ is not concerned about, I guess we're talking about spare tires that go to vehicles in
Right.
trailers. You know, looking at all the pictures, I mean, just in this one row of a fence, where we've got 3 tires on its side and then 1 tire up, there's 80 tires just in that one row right there. And
Those were all
that's
giant
all
truck
the
tires.
pictures that we see of all these tires. I would be willing, and you may want to shoot me, but I may be willing to go up to 50 tires remaining exposed on this property. That would take into account maybe 50 or more that we have buried on the property that we're not going to be able to see. But that's about as far as I would go, and I'm not even sure, commissioners, if you would be willing to go up to
That's
50.
more reasonable.
And Chris has his hand raised again.
So this is, ODFW's had a fair amount of concern with this. One of the things is we're not actually in a FEMA mapped floodplain. However, there is an overbank when the water goes over the top of its first bank. Then it goes into the overbank area, and I would request that all material be removed, all tires be removed within the overbank area, which can be defined in the field fairly easily. That minimizes the concern of, it doesn't remove it entirely, but it minimizes the concern of water, tires floating downstream, leaching, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. I can see.
And so commissioners, if you wanted to consider twice as many as the 20, 40, 30, I mean, I'll even go to 20. But I want to give Mr. Hunter some benefit of the doubt. But that would also include not bringing any further tires onto the property.
I got that one down, yeah, no more tires on the property. I mean, I do have that one down. But it just upsets me because I can't create with tires. I mean, I wanted to try to find new ways, swings and playgrounds, making jungle gyms and stuff like that. I was just wanting to create new things. I was almost going to call the place the Retired Ranch. I mean.
So, Mr. Hunter, I do apologize, but I don't think that is going to be a good approach for your property.
Well, that seems to be the issue right now, and I think that's what we're coming to a conclusion on.
And I would suggest that if that is in fact your desire into the future, that you need to work very closely with DEQ related to permitting, related to the reports and things.
I should have done more
required.
research than I did.
Right. And unfortunately now we are all seeking a solution that that appears reasonable to the average person.
Right.
That's our challenge as county
And I appreciate you
commissioners.
trying to find a reasonable conclusion to this and help me out. I really do. I appreciate this.
Yeah, we are trying to find what will appear reasonable. We understand that we will not make everyone happy all the time.
Well, no.
the interest of something reasonable.
So are we leaning toward setting a number then, setting a maximum number of exposed tires on the property?
I think we're leaning toward, I believe we're leaning toward, Commissioner Yamamoto is nodding. I think the additional piece that Chris brought forward is where those tires need to be on the property, which is
Right,
out of that waterway space, and
I know what he's talking about there, because I know how the land lays.
okay. And I think really the intent would be the tires on your property are the tires for your vehicles, the extra tires for your vehicles. And if you were to have one or two in your garden as what would be considered the average, across the county, most likely that's the type of number we're trying to get to. I struggle
Right.
to know what that number is. I think that is our intention.
Because I would like to use some of them for the garden.
And I don't think you're probably the only person in Tillamook County that does put some tires in their garden. And I think that's the type of number we're trying to find, is how do we create something that
I will clean up the other side.
is quantifiable for us to check on this, to make sure that you have achieved what's required and that you remain in compliance.
But to get all those tires out of there, I can't do it in 10 days. That's just too much on me. I can't even pick them up that easy.
Which unfortunately, due to the long history of you knowing that tires needed to be removed and having them still on your property, puts us in a position where we all begin to wonder if the right answer is for the county to clean this up for you and to essentially place the lien on the property to get it done.
I'll get rid of them.
And then if there is a lien on the property, is that something that then can be paid off?
You don't
by
want to
the
get a
property
lien. I want to get rid of the tires myself.
Sell the property,
Myself.
we collect. And just by the way, if whatever time when you give him, then David follows up and sees if it's done, and if it's not done, then.
The county goes.
And the David has the option.
And then I understand that, because I hadn't completed mine.
Right. Okay, so I think we need to decide number of tires, which I think I would be leaning to less than 50. I think that's even with extra vehicle tires for your vehicles. I think you understand the
Right.
concept here is that
I
we
do.
get you down to a couple in your garden, not the ability to stockpile tires. And so, I think I am leaning toward that 20 to 30 number. I understand I have 4 extra tires at my house that are snow tires for my car, right? I understand we do have extra tires for our vehicles, and we don't.
Well, I'm in construction, that's what I mean. I have work trucks and,
Right, and we don't want to preclude you from having those tires, but we do need to have a number because we need to be able to prove compliance because we have a history of non-compliance.
well, that's where I figured DEQ was kind of good on the assumption that, if they go to vehicles that you have that are running and they're used, then they're not included in your tire thing, and all other tires should go. That's the whole, everything that's on the driveway, everything that's on the fence line. Would that not be a fair way to say it? Because then it would set a precedence for anybody else too, wouldn't it?
So we're saying vehicles that are tires associated with existing vehicles.
Right.
And as stored, not as a fence, not as.
Right, exactly.
So what about not in excess of 20 exposed tires on the property that are not currently on vehicles?
Well, I believe they should be all put up and not inside or anything either.
They should be.
Like thrown in the garage or up on a rack or,
So you would be okay if there were to be essentially no exposed tires.
Right.
Including the landscape tires.
Including, I can't have landscape tires, we just assessed that.
Okay, and then how long? So I understand you have had a long time to do this. I understand that it is our preference as well not to have the county have to go out and do this work if we can
Right.
avoid it. But we really can't give you a whole lot of time because a lot of time has already been given.
The reason I held off as long as I did is because I wanted to know the difference between when something becomes not solid waste, because I thought that I was doing something constructive with them.
Right.
And therefore thought that it was material other than solid waste.
So now we know clearly that is not the case.
Right.
So if we were to provide to the middle of January, that would provide you the better part of 4 weeks, 3.5 to 4 weeks, to find solutions to get the tires off your property.
Right.
And to deal with the road approach as well.
Right, and if I get the tires off and everything, and he comes down, I pay for the permit, he comes down and inspects it, and sees that everything has been what he asked, then,
And you are clear, and we will stay off the property, and we will not put a lien on it. If those things do not happen, we will step in and we will make those things happen, and there will be a lien applied to the property for the costs, or there'll be an additional hearing in which the costs are presented to commissioners, and we would potentially take action to apply that.
I understand.
Okay?
I
So,
think 30
So
days
we
would be
would
fair.
also-
30 days,
Some of the holidays.
30 days, so we're looking at the 21st sitting here today,
That would be awesome.
so I would have to
We
count.
we would
30 days.
also need receipts for disposal of all.
Right, I understand that, that's why I'm gonna try and make a deal with
They didn't get
April's,
dumped somewhere else on a.
so they can use them for landfill.
Right. So 14, 28 days is the 18th, so 30 days would be the 20th of January.
Okay, and the final number we arrived at?
I believe that it was all tires that, there were to be no tires that were not associated with a vehicle and stored appropriately inside at this point.
Right, all tires should be out of sight.
And associated.
And Mr. Hunter, I would want you to agree, and let us know this verbally right now, and we need it in writing, that you will not bury any more tires on
No,
the
sir.
property.
That is fine, I'll sign something to that effect, yes. I will not bury, I didn't bury any tires except for the ones coming up the driveway approach, just so I could try to get my tractor. It was a temporary thing, just so I could hook out on my backhoe. That was it.
Okay. So.
So I would also ask Chris and Dave if they have any problems with the discussion that's currently happening with the commissioners.
I had one concern is the property owner, the landowner is actually not present, so any agreement and signatures that is made by other parties other than landowners, this would be a question for county council. It's probably irrelevant. It doesn't actually mean anything.
Well,
I'm not sure the right way to say that. That's a question for
Right.
county council.
If I understood county council correctly, the order that we make goes to the property owner, and it is actually more generous than statute. So if I would understand correctly, being more generous than statute, we are in right to go ahead and place these demands on the property owner. Council?
That's what you're supposed to do.
Plus, I think the last time that you guys issued a statement or something like that that came out to the house, my name was on it, and I signed for it.
Shall I run a motion by county council just to see if this passes muster?
We're gonna try to put it into an order form for you, so, yeah.
Okay, so I propose to move, or shall I just go ahead and move right now?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear it first?
Make a motion.
Okay, all right. I move that the Board of County Commissioners, based on the information received in accordance with Tillamook County Ordinance 4, Section 9.04B, determine that a solid waste violation exists at 22250 East Beaver Creek Road. The property owner is required to abate all materials in the unpermitted road approach, all tires not exposed, or all exposed tires not associated with a vehicle, specifically tires in the overbank area and tires in the right-of-way, and dispose of all materials at a permitted facility within 30 days. If the violation is not abated within 30 days, then the solid waste administrator is authorized to proceed according to section 9.04C and D of Ordinance 4.
I have no problem with that order from a.
I agree.
perspective.
Commissioner Yamamoto, we have a motion.
And county council says it's okay.
County council
So
said he
I
had
would-
no problem.
I thought it was
I
terrific.
would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
So for county council, so this is going to be, this board order is going to be addressed to Judith Debray, is that correct?
Yep,
And I believe me too, right?
no, it's just your mom.
Property owner, just your mom, she will get the order.
Okay.
And so this would have to be signed, so if we're going to allow 30 days, this would have to be signed and returned to us. And how do we verify that it is her signature?
I can bring it back today signed.
I didn't hear anything about any signatures in the motion, David. I think Mr. McCall can follow up to make sure that things are properly disposed of. I don't
Right.
think you need an agreement with Mr. Hunter, that they're properly disposed of.
And I have to
Sorry
bring receipts to
interject.
Mr. McCall.
I think Commissioner Yamamoto is referring to how we notify Ms. DeBrey, and which would be like a certified letter.
That's correct.
Is that correct, Commissioner?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That works for me.
Great.
So I don't have, no further questions.
Okay, so I believe I have a motion and a second. We have had further discussion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hunter, for a lively conversation and pushing us.
Thank you
to
for your
move
tolerance in
forward.
this situation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and
know?
I apologize for taking so much of your time today.
That's
I'm
good.
glad that it's finally, I understand where everything stands now.
Yeah, we're moving forward. Okay, thank you. We look forward to solutions. Okay,
Nice seeing you, Bill.
Good luck.
we have put item number 15 to bed. I would like to suggest a recess for 5 minutes for a quick stretch and break, and we will recess at 3:54. Actually, we'll take 6 minutes. We will come back at 11 a.m. We are in recess.